Rob Grimes with the IFBTA, and today I'm really very pleased to have in the studio, which is like not normal, but in the studio to have our guest Brett Smith, who's the Vice President of Product Strategy and Management at PAR Technology, and PAR is one of our industry supporter members. So welcome to the studio, Brett.
Thanks for having us.
If we take a look at, the things that you've mentioned, an awful lot of pieces, and I want to switch to your strategy hat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if I think about where the future goes, okay, versus where you are now, in the next 3 years, 5 years, where do you expect that PAR is going to evolve to? Are there some key areas?
I think so. I think you're going to start to see us become more of a platform player. You'll see us pick up portfolio assets along the way. We are definitely an acquiring company. Right?
Buy versus build.
Right. And also build. So in the case of buying best in breed solutions, you'll see us do that. You'll also see us build a platform in between. So one of the things that I find every day in the market, talking to our customers and our prospects and anybody else who will let me talk to them, is that a typical restaurant has somewhere between 12 and 16 technologies sitting in their restaurant in some way, shape, or form. Might be a little lower if you're all in one.
McDonald's has several hundred.
Well, I'm just saying typical.
A typical.
Yes.
Okay, typical.
I've seen the McDonald's map.
Okay.
Right. But when it comes down to the endpoint in the restaurant, right, there's a lot to do. And if depending on the customer strategy, they have build buy decisions, right? And as we talked earlier, when that point becomes a competitive advantage in either cost or gaining more sales, they'll start to pivot to another type of solution in that category, right? Or something innovative.
Well, it's much easier for them to do it today too, because it's cloud-based technologies and things work together because of the APIs, so it's easier.
It's easier, but not easy.
And the question is, how do you stay competitive then when they are judging you against the new shiny object that's out there?
Right. So we see things a little bit differently than the typical walled garden, right? A lot of our competitors will look and say, yes, we're open, right? But then you start to see them cringe a little bit and maybe throw a little blockers in between where
we're open but,
right? Or we'll slow it down, or we'll put artificial brakes on it. We've traditionally not had that in our family, in our culture, and so on. So when thinking about our customer, they have to stitch all these things together, right? And it's challenging to say the least, because it's not just easy. I mean, there are some industry guidelines and there's some canonical models, and that's all great, but there's nothing that says I'm going to deliver this as a solution to you. Mm-hmm. We're in the field of our competition and what's emerging, they are making themselves successful, but not really looking at the entirety of the ecosystem. And I think we can do that. As we acquire and build, we want to make sure that when our products are together, they're the first in mind, right? And they're the most successful. When we put them together, though, we want to be unstoppable, right? And so does the vision of our restaurant customers, right? When they choose all of those right pieces for them, they are making decisions to become unstoppable.
But those decisions aren't necessarily made on their own. Wouldn't you say that one of the decisions why somebody would select PAR is because of a partnership?
100%.
And so the question is, how do you work with them to make them unstoppable, but also leverage what they have, or apply that to yourself to be unstoppable? How does that partnership work in innovation?
So once you get past the idea that a third party should be treated as a first party in our ecosystem, it becomes a little easier. And it's a difficult pill to swallow at first, because you're very proud and you're trying to drive your own product to success and you see competitors. But the reality is, when you get to a point where customers, partners, innovators see you as the magnet, right, and the enabler, we're going to see a change. And I think this is the next generation of, so we talked about, first POS and bringing in cloud for the first time with Brink. But I think this is the differentiator of the next generation.
But the next generation of the emerging and growth companies, while you may be referring next generation technology, those companies don't have that history.
Right.
And so they're starting at a point here, which, by the way, I've talked with technology companies that sit there and say, and we don't have that history, so we started right here,
Sure,
right?
sure. So we're connecting. So I'll give you an example. We're looking for opportunity to unique opportunity because of our portfolio to drive something innovative that could be differentiated, right, from others. And so we looked and did a tremendous amount of talking with customers and our advisory board and so on. And one of the outstanding problems that they have today is online ordering flooding their restaurants, right, putting them in the weeds. There's methods today from the consolidating systems
Right.
that will try to slot and throttle, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is they don't see what's happening in the kitchen because there's a drive-through, there's a counter, there's a
Right.
table, right? And so they're blind to it. So they're trying to back away and try to place orders so that may not happen.
And that used to be and still exists because different systems don't talk to each other. So when you purchase a separate drive-through system or dining room management system
absolutely.
versus the POS
Yep.
that they're not tracking.
So think about the digital signatures that live in the restaurant and some of the portfolio we have, right? Drive-throughs and point of sale and KDS and speed of service and so on and so forth. But all of those orders come through either an aggregator or directly online, right? First party, third party, doesn't matter. And so we have a really good position to understand all of those things, right? Including labor, right? And
Right.
who's there and skills, right? This can
Which
get
is one of the
very
bigger
elaborate,
issues, but
right?
Yeah, okay. Or opportunities.
And the technology is maturing enough where there's some machine learning that we've already can deploy, where we can deliver on a much higher degree of promise time, right? And promise time means I set the expectation for the driver, I set the expectation for the guest, I set the expectations of the employee, right? And all of the things that are pain points in just that equation is everybody, right? Nobody winds up satisfied when the kitchen gets in the weeds, right? And you wind up with drivers that are fighting people at the counter to,
Right.
is that my bag, right? Like you've seen it all. And so, with our assets, we have an ability to kind of pull that all together as a solution. So we could do it and say we're going to just attach it to our online ordering system, right? But we're choosing it to do it a little bit differently. We're building a component that will do promise time. And that component can be consumable to others, right? So if we get the data from Brink today, we can get the data from any other point of sale. We're creating a situation where canonical or basic information will get passed onto an event system, right, that other people can listen to or subscribe. And that will be the same thing for KDS. Brink KDS, of course, first. Brink POS first, because that's our sandbox. But as that data feed comes in, and let's say you have interesting new camera technology that gives us a little bit of more time and motion, that information be fed into the machine learning, and all of a sudden we get this mature promise time that starts to systematically pace the restaurant way better and set the expectations for the online ordering system, the delivery, as well as the guests all around the system. So we're in a great position, and exhibiting that capacity management as a component and not a product for all, like for menu as an example would be a logical place to put it just on menu. It's not, because we think that is a really good place to start for understanding how we intend to look at technology in the future.
So are you coining the phrase promise time or the term? I mean, you could make it an industry standard now, but it seems that I get it. A lot of measurement is done based on time, speed of service, drive-through time. I get that. But in reality, the example that you used was broader than that, because you talked about the throttling and you talked about not knowing. And yes, it's about time, but that it's also about quality, and it's about, menu items being available, right?
Certainly.
And so I'm grasping at this because I can't figure it out right now, but promise time is one component of an overall restaurant promise.
Right.
And so the question is, what are those other components, whether it's, quality expectation or, whatever it is, the service levels and response, because that goes along with the type of operation. But I think it's an interesting theme to start in, but it shows how it's all actually connected to deliver.
Right.
Promise delivery.
Yep.
It's all connected to that.
So when you have the promise time, right, and you're coordinated with your delivery driver or a third-party delivery, and they arrive at the time we suggested, and it's the real one, right? The food's hot or the food's cold. It's not melting.
Yeah, whether it's an outside service or not,
100%.
because you're really controlling that, it makes an awful lot of sense. We're really pleased to have PAR Technology as an industry supporter member, and
thanks for
very pleased to have Brett Smith, who is well known in the industry and has that reputation that he brings to PAR and the experience there as their Vice President of Product Strategy and Management. And so, thank you for your support of the industry and for your support of the IFBTA.
Thanks.